Welcome to She Sells Radio. So, honestly, I think this is probably one of the most important and also personal podcast interviews that I've done, in that we're talking today about spirituality and how to deepen your spiritual connection. And for me, my spiritual connection is something that I really didn't talk about a lot, at least not a lot publicly for years. One, because for a long time I felt like I didn't really have one. Um, and two, when I did, I didn't know how to fit it into my business, and I didn't know how to fit it into the conversation of sales and business growth and the work I do with my clients. And what I found is when I made the decision, at one point, that I was just unavailable to play small in any area of my life, and that included holding back who I was. And I started bringing more of my spiritual beliefs into my social media and into my coaching programs. That's actually when everything exploded. And I had such a limiting belief around people won't want to work with me because they're going to think we do the quote unquote woo, which I think we should all just drop collectively. But people won't want to work with me because of that, or I won't be taken seriously. And what I found was it was actually the opposite, was that when I started bringing more of that connection into what I teach, how I coach, that was when I kind of found my stride, and I found my tribe too with clients. And now it's funny because a lot of the conversations I have with clients are with women who have been very successful in business. And some of them are starting their own businesses, or some of them already have businesses, but they are very spiritual. So whatever that version of it is for them, that's a huge piece of who they are, but they still have that limiting belief of, can I really bring all of me to the surface? And so that's part of why I'm so excited about this conversation, because spirituality is now a huge piece of my brand and who I am, and it's only going to get bigger. And I know that there is so much power when you can learn to tap into and deepen that spiritual connection, whatever that is for you. And I'm big on choose your own path, but know who source is, know who God is for you, and let that be part of how you run your sales and your business. And there's so much power in that. And so whether you're someone who wants to bring more spirituality into your brand and your business, or you just want to maybe reconnect with God's spirit source and find a way to run your life that doesn't require it feeling like it's all on you. Because for me, for so many years, that's how I ran it. And it was incredibly stressful. And now I know that I have the power of infinite intelligence behind me, guiding me all the way, and to be able to release control and the need to try to do everything all on my own, because I'm forgetting all the power I have behind me, has been transformational. And so all of that to say, my guest today is one of the top spiritual leaders in the world. So if you're not familiar with her, I'm just going to bring her bio over and share with you a little bit about who she is. But my guest today is Tracy Dimech, and she's out of Australia, but she's kind of like the Gabby Bernstein of Australia. And so if you're not familiar with her, she's one of Australia's most trusted and sought after psychic mediums. And she's got just a very incredible story that she shares on the podcast today of what it was like for her to actually like come out and share that she had these psychic abilities, and how she uses them in her business. But we also talk about, for you, regardless of where you are on your spiritual journey, how can you deepen that spiritual connection so that you don't feel like you're having to do everything on your own, and so that you can harness the power of God and the universe to help you in accomplishing your goals. And it's such a different way of living. It's such a more ease-filled way of living, and it's so powerful. So for me, this is actually what lights me up more than anything else these days. And this conversation with Tracy was so eye-opening about just these deeper layers and levels we can all get to as we deepen our spiritual connection. So you're going to love this episode. And I hope, if nothing else, Tracy gives you permission to bring all of who you are into your sales, your business, and your life, in addition to helping you really find ways to deepen into your connection and your partnership with Spirit, God, and the universe. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into this incredible interview with my guest, Tracy Dimech. Tracy, I am beyond excited to have you on She Sells Radio. And so we've got to get right into it. First of all, it's 4 a.m. where you are. So I so appreciate you waking up at the crack of dawn for this interview. And so the funniest / weirdest thing happened right before we recorded. And you were like, oh, that actually happens all the time. So I'm very curious to find out why this happened. So I'll just give everybody a little bit of context. Right before we were hitting record, we were just having some connection. We were working through some connection issues. And so I was waiting for you to hop back on, and I like bent down to help my elderly dog get in her bed underneath me. And as I stood up, I've had this desk for years. I slammed my head into my standing desk. My coffee goes flying everywhere. My second screen, I think, is broken. I'm pretty sure it's not working right now because it's laying on the floor in pieces. And it's like, I still have coffee dripping places, but I was like, it's 4 a.m. where you are. I don't want to like make you wait for an hour while I get this cleaned up. And you said, oh yeah, stuff like that happens a lot of times for people when we connect for the first time. So what in the world was that? And why does that happen?
I'm so sorry.
No, it's not. I'm totally okay. I'm more intrigued by it than anything. I'm so fascinated by it.
So essentially, when I meet people for the first time, or even any time after that, but usually for the first time, my guides want to make sure that I'm not needing to drop my energy too low to connect with you. And I know that sounds bad in a way. It's not. It's not meant to be anything negative. It's really just a matter of they're trying to raise your vibe to connect with mine rather than lower my vibe to connect with you. And so there's always some kind of weird, strange meeting of energies, and sometimes it can be just a bang. Usually honestly, it's people will burst into tears when they're with me, and I just have this effect. I just have to wait for people to stop crying, and usually they have no idea why they're crying, or they just start verbal diarrhea. It's like a confession booth whenever you're with me. It's like step inside this zone of safety to just bleh. And so usually there'll be some kind, depending on what we're doing, obviously this has a purpose that's got a time constraint. So obviously they're going to try and make it happen quickly. And it probably would have just been a knock to your head to just really get you where our guides need us, as opposed to your agenda, essentially.
Oh, I love that. Because I was just going to ask, okay, so what does it mean if I knock my head and there's like a big bang really fast? Interesting.
So it's to throw you off. It's to rattle you. It's to step you out of your safety. And I know that you're the host and that's not fair, but I don't mean it to happen. They just do it.
But you know what's okay? This is so interesting that you say that, because right before this interview, I noticed. So a lot of my background was like trying to control so much in my life, and that turned into, my listeners know a lot of my story of eating disorder and all this. And so I've spent years healing that, and I feel generally pretty relaxed and more at ease throughout the day. But I noticed even right before this interview, there was something I was trying to control with my husband, and I was like, oh, that's another level of releasing control. And it was a little thing, but I thought, wow, that's probably this whole next level that I haven't even gotten into yet. So as you said, people are opening up, and here I'm going to tell you my life story and tell you about this. But it's just so interesting that like releasing control is a theme. So yeah, wow.
It allows grace and ease. It's just how it works.
Oh my gosh.
It's very simple.
So I'm so, okay. So I'm just, of course I have questions prepared for you, but I'm just going to be really in the moment and follow the guides and just see what feels right. So one of the things that I was curious about, because I remember I had a business mentor years ago who first really introduced the idea of bringing spirituality into your business. And in the corporate world, which I know you work with a fair number of clients and corporate and high-level entrepreneurs, that was never something that was taught. It never even dawned on me that I could bring spirituality into my business. The two were two totally separate things, at least as far as how I'd operated up until that point. And when I started learning to incorporate source, spirit, universe into how I ran my business, follow my intuition more, everything shifted. And so I know a lot of the listeners who are listening right now, they're very interested in that topic, and they're really curious. Some of them are kind of on the cusp of just really revisiting what spirituality is for them. Maybe they grew up in very conservative backgrounds and they almost had like a bad taste of what it meant to have a religion or spirituality. And others are really deep in it and super fascinated by it. But tell us, because you've built such an amazing brand, You've built, you've got this world famous brand. You're helping people across the world. You've got this just incredible, you've got incredible programs. How did this all start for you? Tell us a bit of your backstory. If someone, because so many of my listeners are West Coast and they're in the States. So if someone's not familiar with you yet, tell us your backstory.
Yes. So obviously, I'm over in Australia on the East Coast, just north of Sydney, and I grew up hating sales. For me, sales was something that made me feel icky. It made me feel like I was asking people for money that they might not have, because growing up, I had that scarcity mindset, like so many of us do. And so if I felt like someone was asking me for money and I didn't have it, that made me feel bad. And I never wanted to make anyone else feel bad, because I didn't want them to make them feel like they didn't have enough or they weren't enough through my offer. And so I had a very clear belief system that sales would make people feel bad, and I never wanted to do that. But because I'm sensitive, and obviously when I was younger, I wasn't as aware as I am now as to what to label that. But basically, it's as an empath and being sensitive to how other people feel when we're pushing something on them or when we're asking them for something. And it was that feeling that carried me through. And so I avoided anything to do with sales, even though my first job out of high school was door-to-door sales. And oh my God, I lasted 2 days, Elyse. And
What did you
my,
sell?
I sold security systems.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So everything about that doesn't vibe with you. So I see why it lasted 2 days.
I lasted 2 days. And over here, it was like the summers are harsh, and it was like 42-degree days, and you are walking the beat, knocking on the doors, trying to sell people. And it was almost like I was trying to prove to something that no, this is not how it is, and I'm not going to feel, and I'm just gonna do it. And I knew that there was this access to tremendous abundance. It's just that, and even from a young, like I was 17, and I was aware that there was this elusive abundance that sat there. But for me, it wasn't the strategy or the tactics or the sales, that behind it. And we had a sales and marketing team that would drill us with what to say, the scripts to say, the word for word, and this is how you close, and this is how you do this. And it would work. But for me, it was like, no, this is a feeling. I need to get to a feeling in order to get people to feel safe, in order to listen to me. And I need the feeling. So I went on this sort of journey of avoiding sales completely. And I'm a visual merchandiser by trade. So I was using I was selling indirectly by appealing to people's feelings. So they would walk into a store. So I don't know if you know French Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked for them in Australia, and I would go from store to store, and I would merchandise all their stores based off the brand, derivative and direction. But a lot of what I would do would be against the grain, and I was a bit of a rebel, and my bosses didn't really like that, because I wasn't following the sales, like I just wasn't following the way it's done, the guidelines. But I would just feel my way through, and the sales would occur. And when they were looking at it, they're like, okay, well, we need to shift the way that we are doing things to do it the way that you're doing it. And when I tried to explain what I was doing, I just kept going, it's how I feel. Like I need to feel my way through this, not strategize my way through this. My strategy is feeling. And so I was a visual merchandiser until I had babies, and I had babies quite young. I've got 3. And so I'm 40 this year, and I've got my 3 out. 2 of them are teenagers, and it's crazy. But during that stage, I was working part-time. And so I was traveling down to Sydney, and I was doing night shifts, and I was doing creatives and briefs. And I loved all of that stuff because I could focus on the feeling. But what I was realizing was that I started to get sick. And I started to get sick really, really quickly. And so I ended up being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Wow. Just after my 3rd child was born, which was 7 years ago now. And I got to the point where within 6 months, I had gone from being kind of like I am now, but not as spirited. But in 6 months, I went straight down to needing a walking stick to walk. I lost so much weight. I was down to, I don't know pounds, but I was 47 kilos. So I don't know what that converts to, but it was very thin. I had no short-term memory. I couldn't even remember my neighbor's name.
Oh my gosh.
And when I spoke, it was clear in my head, but it wouldn't come out clear.
Yeah.
And so I got this diagnosis, and even though it was earth-shattering and terrible, and it changed everything, I still felt like, thank God I have an answer as to why I feel sick. So it was, how we hold on to just anything as long as we have something we can hold on to. However, what I found was that when I was younger, I tried to take my own life a couple of times, and I knew that the universe wasn't going to let me check out. And I was sitting there one night, and it was the night before my neurologist appointment, where we were going to have more tests on my brain, more scans on my brain and my spine, to see whether we could find active lesions that we hadn't been able to find yet in order to treat my multiple sclerosis. So the night before that, I'm sitting on my front veranda, and I literally just spoke to whoever the hell I was speaking to. I had no idea who I was talking to. And even though, like, I've always been able to speak to spirit ever since I was little, I could see dead people, speak to dead people, understand dead people. I've always just known how people are feeling without realizing it. So that was not new. However, I'd never directly spoken to them for me. I'd never really lent on them for me. It was always just responding to what they gave me rather than reaching out. And growing up, I didn't grow up with a religion. So praying for me was almost like a dirty word, to think that I wasn't allowed to pray. And so what I did that night, though, was essentially praying. And in that, though, what I noticed was that I gave up. But instead of calling it giving up, I was very clear that I was surrendering rather than giving up. And so I literally said to them, I know you don't want me to check out. I know I can't. I can't figure out why you're keeping me here, but you are. This reason is greater than me, and I don't know what that is, but I will faithfully show up for whatever you show me from here on in. Just please let me see my baby girl grow up. Because she was only 6 months at this stage, and I had 2 older boys. And through the whole 3 months of sitting there with a diagnosis of MS, I just couldn't stop crying, thinking, I'm never going to see her grow up. I'm never going to see her get married. Like, the boys I'm never going to meet their wives. Like, I saw my whole life ending and just not existing. And I just basically surrendered and said, whatever you give me, I will do. And I made that promise so deep down inside myself. Like, it was like the first time I'd ever believed anything I'd said, in a way. Even though I was a fairly authentic person in terms of the way that I spoke to them, but this was like the first time that I felt something change. The next day I went into my neurologist, and he turned around and he said, you've been misdiagnosed. You don't have multiple sclerosis. And I was like, come again. In a way, it was just like, oh no, like, I need that diagnosis, because that's my identity right now. As scary as it is, it's my identity. And you're taking that from me. This was not what you guys were supposed to do. Anyway, my diagnosis ended up being something fairly simple but very dangerous, and I was very close to dying with my body system shutting down. I was void of all iron and B vitamin, which is a very real problem, especially for women, that goes undetected for so long, because it's the last thing we think about. It's something, it's like simple stupid. It's just so simple. And so a series of iron infusions later, and I got my voice back, I got my body back, and I got my memory back, and it was me again. But in order to be able to feel like I could be back in contact with my physical body, my earthly realm, because I'd had such a spiritual experience of faith and surrender and mercy in my view, I joined up to do a bodybuilding competition. And in the 12 weeks that I had to prepare for that, like, and I was the worst person to have signed up for something like this. Like, it was the worst shape to be in, to then be on stage for a natural bodybuilding competition in 12 weeks. But through that process, I spent a lot of time with just me, myself, and I, and a lot of time trying to understand what just happened. Was that a miracle? What was this? And the day that I got up on stage, I loved it. And I walked down those stairs, and I heard a voice say, it's go time. And I was like, I think I just went pretty hardcore. Like, I just got up in a green string bikini with diamante platforms, fake tan, my hair trimmed and curled, and I was like shining like a dance ball, like a disco ball. Like, I don't know what you call go, but I think I just go. And it was 45 minutes away from where I live, this venue. And in the 45 minutes from there to here, remembering I'm still doing visual merchandising at night, still identifying with that and kind of still loving it, I was on my phone, my husband was driving, and I Googled just this beautiful image of the Northern Lights, because I just love the Northern Lights. I've always loved them. I Googled the image, and I put text on front of it, and I just wrote Tracy Dimech, psychic medium, now taking bookings. And I posted it to social media. And for most of the people in my life, they would never have known that I was a psychic medium. People from when I was younger know, and my husband knows because it's who I am, but I was very much in the closet about that side of myself because it's judged very easily. There's a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes around it, and I wasn't going to put myself out there for that because I'm too sensitive. So I put it out there, and straight away I started to notice that this fear started to present itself. But you know how they say feel the fear and do it anyway, and especially in sales, it's like that's that moment of you've got to drop in. And I've heard you say it on your podcast before. It's just like that, and I've heard other people that you interview say it too. It's that fear is an indicator that I've got to do this. But for me, it wasn't a fear. It was I've got to do this. It was a fear of expansion, but it was an opportunity to express faith. It was an opportunity to be able to give back what I said I would, that I'm ready, that I thought that I knew where I was going. I thought that I had the plan. I thought that I was doing what I was meant to be doing. But clearly I was wrong because I steered myself into a corner where you took away my voice, you took away my body, you took away my memory, my mind. You took everything from me. Almost like we need you to just look in a completely different direction. So I had to just be thinking this feeling of, wow, what the hell have I just done? Like, this isn't just starting a new business. This is putting myself out there for judgment. It's putting myself out there for so much. It meant so much more than just starting a new business to me. But for me, it was the fear was that I got to express faith, and it was my new indicator of what I was meant to be doing was an opportunity to express faith. So if I had to have faith in something, that's where I needed to go. And so I started to change fear to faith. And so fear and faith are very directly related to me.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so then that's exactly what my mantra ended up being. It was, I'm going to feel the fear and I'm going to have faith. I'm going to feel the fear and I'm going to have faith. And so in order to have that faith, you have to surrender it back up again. So it's just this process of feel the fear, have faith, and surrender it with no agenda. So I started to just sit down and listen. And every time I felt the fear, I expressed faith by surrendering. And I'd just say, okay, show me what it is that you need me to do. Bring it to me. Bring me the people. Bring me the opportunity. Just bring it to me rather than me searching for it, making it happen, planning it. And it almost came like someone opened the floodgates. And I went from having one client to two clients to three clients to just going, wow, I don't even need to do my part-time job anymore income-wise, which was great because I was home at nighttime now. I could work in the day. I put my little girl into daycare. The boys are at school. And so suddenly I could have a big chunk of my life back. I could be in bed with my husband now, and I could be there in the morning awake and ready to go when the kids are going to school rather than half asleep and missing out on such a beautiful stage of their life. And so I started to change the income, and I was charging $90 an hour. And this was in 2018, so not that long ago. And very quickly, I started to notice that I needed to put her into another day of daycare and another day of daycare. And before I knew it, I was doing 6 days a week, and I was still charging $90 an hour. And I started to get sick again. And I just couldn't shake it. I started to just get this chesty cough that would not go away. And so I was like, okay, guys, clearly this is me being so in it that I'm failing to see the opportunity to express some more faith to continue to move. So I started to recognize that my body would tell me if I hadn't clocked it earlier, my body would tell me when it was time that I needed to surrender. And so I started to walk this dangerous line, if I'm honest, where I would wait until I would get sick before I would surrender. It was dangerous. It was dangerous because then what happened was I started to lose clients, and I started to think, what am I doing wrong? And so not only would I get sick, but the physical abundance would also disappear. And I started to notice the direct relationship between where I'm vibrating and what it's attracting, and the universal law of cause and effect and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And so someone actually said to me just in passing, maybe you need to up your rate. And that is something that was the first time I'd ever heard that back then. And now I get it. But back then I was like, what? I am not giving enough. I am failing these people. What do you mean up my rate? And they couldn't give me an answer. They were typically coming from that sales perspective. But because I didn't understand it, I was like, I need to surrender this. And I need to have faith that this conversation is what I needed to hear, but I need to understand it from a feeling perspective, not a logical perspective. So what Spirit basically showed me was that I was getting sick, not because I wasn't doing enough, but I was doing too much for people. And I was undervaluing my energy. So I was spending more energy than I was getting back. And what I needed to do was up my rate. And they took me up to $120. It's $30. It scared the living daylights out of me. I was petrified. I tried to justify it in so many ways. I started to buy crystals and have crystals to give away when people came to try and justify that value. And I got sick again. And it's just like, what am I missing? I thought I was doing it right. And they're just like, sit down in your chair and serve. No add-ons, no bells and whistles, no nothing. Just do you. Do it the way you're doing it. Whatever you're doing is working. You're helping people. So then I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is, because at that point, I wanted to be a top A grade student for Spirit. I wanted to just be the number one, whatever you say, I'm going to do it. And I want to please you and I want to make you happy, because I do not want to be hit by another Mack truck where I'm questioning being here. So then from there, within probably a month, I went up to 150. So within 3 months, I'd gone from 90 to 150, and my calendar picked back up again. And it came down to, wow, I'm actually going to have to choose between motherhood and my job. There is a clear balance here. Like, I'm out of balance. And that became a Tracy thing and a personal thing. So I sat down with my husband and I was just like, I need to invest in myself. I need to understand what I'm going to need now from a human perspective, not a spiritual perspective, about how to grow this, because it's becoming bigger than me. I put it up to Spirit, and Spirit said, because it's not about you. And that was my moment. And I shit you not, excuse the French, I hope I'm allowed to say that.
You're allowed to say what you want. Yeah.
I went from 150 to 180 in a month. So that first $30 from 90 to 120 scared me. I'd nearly gone up by $100 in 6 months. And the people just kept coming. And the contacts kept reaching out. The opportunities kept coming. People were talking about me. People were messaging me. People were just coming and coming and coming. And I'm like, I think I've found this. I think I've found this balance of this sweet spot. So my husband basically said to me, if I can see you're passionate about this, and I can see that it's creating this financial freedom for us in a certain sense. So if you want to put our daughter into more daycare, do it, if that's what you need to do. And I was like, you know what? It's not a decision that if I do it, I can't come back from. If I put her in, it's not like she's locked in there. I can take her out if I don't feel like I can do this. She went to daycare and started loving it and thriving and growing better. And they're like, she can go to school next year. And I'm just like, yes. The boys were happier because Mama was happy. Mama was serving finally from a feeling rather than from a need to, or a told she has to, and to follow the guidelines. And then I decided that, because I was doing it all from home and I was traveling the circuit doing psychic fairs and meeting people. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this from home anymore. I need to separate this space. So I decided to hire a space just before COVID hit at the beginning of last year.
Wow.
And everywhere was so expensive. I'm like, I'm going to have to do 2 clients a week in order to cover the rent for a space. So it's like, okay, this is a problem, But what I'd learned at that point was a problem is only given to you if the universe knows that you've got the answer inside. You just have to figure out what that answer is. And the way to do that is surrender, and it will show you. So I just surrendered it again. And I remember laying down, I had a really bad headache, and I laid down and I kind of fell asleep quickly, and I heard an alert on my phone. I jumped up, and I don't even remember putting it on there, but I must have put on Facebook ad alert to give me an alert when a space came up for rent in my local area. And this space popped up, and it was a cottage 20 minutes from my home, a tiny room, which was perfect, in a beautiful space where there's psychologists and counselors and marriage celebrants and therapists and beautiful heart-centered people. And it was going to be 80 Australian dollars a week rather than like $480 Australian a week. I messaged the lady, and the next day I was moving in. And then 3 weeks into it, COVID hit. And I was like, oh my God, I have just made the biggest judgment call of expression of, I think I'm big enough to do this. And I was just like, are you guys punishing me? Like, oh my God, my ego has just gone, I need an office space. I'm getting so busy, I can't have people at home. And it's almost like the universe has gone, check yourself before you wreck yourself, Tracy. However, I was not prepared for what was about to happen. In 2020, COVID hit, and I tripled my income.
Oh my goodness.
I doubled my clients and tripled my income. And my rate is now sitting at $220 for 1 hour with me.
Yeah.
And if you want a deeper dive, I get up to as much as $375 an hour.
So how did it happen? So you get the office space, then COVID hits, and you're feeling like, okay, maybe I've been operating out of ego with this, right? Like, how did you go from that to suddenly your business exploding the way it did?
Well, what I realized was that my feeling was right. I had invested in myself, and this opportunity for me was to learn to trust my feelings rather than to just keep relying on them to validate it. It's like, we don't need to validate you anymore, Tracy. Yeah, we can be here, but you've got this. Like, you've been schooled hard enough, and you've been a faithful student. You've trusted us. You've done everything we've asked for, and we've gotten you to this point, and now we need to see what you're going to do with it.
Wow.
So I sat there and I was just like, okay. And it was very clear, because in the first 2 weeks of COVID, my phone was going crazy with, do you have appointments? I need to see you. And I'm just like, well, yeah, I've had a ton of people cancel, and that was where I was just like, oh my God, what have you done? But it was like the universe was bringing me a different group of people. And the people that it was bringing me were the people that were finally feeling something, because COVID had forced them to feel. So COVID, on a universal perspective for us, has been essentially a way for the universe to strip away people's ego, to strip away what we thought we needed, what we thought we were, and to really bring those people who are ready back to their bare basics, and to make them feel where they're at. And if we don't have all of these things that vibrate at a frequency, and the universe takes them from us, our identity is gone. And all of a sudden, we're still alive, like I was that day out in that veranda. You've taken everything from me, and I'm still physically here. I know I am. And all I'm left with when you take everything away from me is this feeling, and I feel vulnerable. I feel naked. I feel like I don't have the answers. And what we started to see was, especially towards the end of 2020, for me in this spiritual space, is that people's life was made up of the law of cause and effect. Their cause was a feeling, and their effect was more. I need value. I need to pin myself on my income. I need to pin myself on what I have. I need to pin myself on who I say I am and my title. You know, I need to pin myself on the private schools my kids go to and the car that I drive. And really, it was just an extension of feelings that they weren't feeling. And so all of a sudden, people have got lockdown and they're in quarantine, and a lot of people are on their own in that. A lot of people are with their spouse for the first time, with lengths of time, or with their family that they haven't been forced to spend that. And so these feelings were coming to the surface. And a lot of the time when people have feelings, COVID took away the ability to receive counseling like very quickly. You know, everyone had to pivot and change, including counselors and psychologists and all of that, and mental health. but they were getting jam-packed with mainstream. And so what was left was people sitting down and just going, wow, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't even know who I am anymore. And so I had people, they were telling me what they were facing, which was, Tracy, I don't know if you're the one that can help me, but I just don't know who I am anymore. And I need to know who I am. And somehow I feel like I need to do that for once and for all. And somehow you came across my page. And I'm just like, well, that's because what's inside of me is resonating with you. And I've been there. I've had to know, I don't know who I am anymore. So now I want you to understand that what you're being given is a moment to surrender. And then what you'll get is mercy. And then what you'll get is hope. And then when you just have hope to continue with faith, you receive more faith. And we're going to take away those feelings, and you're going to see what you start to attract by how you feel.
Yes.
And let's focus on your feeling. So then I basically...
Yeah, no, go ahead. And then I've got a question, but go ahead. Yeah.
So then I was just like, now's the time for me to birth this book that the universe was, again, I got a go time. It was just like a go time for what? And it's a go time to help people figure out who they are. Yeah. And so I'm just like, there are more people out there that need this information that don't have access to me, that can't either afford me right now because of COVID, don't want to afford me right now because of COVID, or any of their scarcity mindsets or whatever. But I need to meet people where they're at, and I need to go to them. And I'm like, show me how to get to them. And they're like, we need you to do a book. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to do a book. I'm not an author. Like, oh no, you guys, you just keep making me do these things I don't want to do. I was just like, okay, feel the fear and have the faith. So I sat down, and all through COVID, income tripled. I never had to worry about my books being sold out. I was booked out to the end of the year from July. I had more money in the bank than I'd ever seen before. And I was like, okay, thank you for giving me the space now to put my journey on paper in order to serve people where they're at. And so that's where the book came. And I hated the entire process, if I'm being honest. I did not like the process of writing the book. But for me, it was not about me. It was about service. And I needed to get it out quick, smart.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And the book, so the book is the title, Who the F Are You? Who the F am I?
Yeah, who the F am I? Yeah.
Who the F am I? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Which is amazing. I love it. So, okay. I have so many, I so appreciate everything you shared about your story. Thank you for that. Because as you were talking, there were just so many threads of what my own experience has been in terms of how to just like release control and surrender, and know that I'm supported in my sales and my business. I don't have to be in charge of all of it. There were so many gems there that you shared, but I'm curious. So for a woman who doesn't, or for anyone who doesn't feel like they have as strong of a spiritual connection as you seem to have, but they're like, she's talking to guides and they're telling her what to do, and she's surrendered. How does that actually work? Especially if someone has never experienced that. Are they speaking to you through your thoughts and it shows up as your voice? Or how would someone who wants to learn how to operate this way even know what it looks or feels like?
Yeah, it's a great question, because a lot of the time, you can say, no, I know I'm supported and I know I'm guided, but it's so much of a relying on a knowing. It's just like, no, I just have to trust it. But do I feel it? No. And so this comes down to that feeling again. So we want to feel supported, not just know we're supported. And the way that we feel supported is to be able to understand what we're feeling truthfully, to get out of our voice, to get out of our head, and really just connect with that heart space. And so for me, I hate cliches. I don't like talking in cliches. I don't like talking about buzzwords and things like that, especially around the spiritual realms or industry. But this heart-centered is the key. So our voice tells the universe a frequency. So we're going to get that law of cause and effect there. Our head basically is our ego, which is going to protect us in a way that makes everything okay for us to handle. It always just wants to keep us safe. And sometimes we have different levels of safety, but You know, I can handle being in trauma, or I can handle a lot more than most people can because of my life. But everyone's level of okayness is driven by their head, which is their ego. What we want to do is get the voice out of the way. So what am I saying? I'm saying I can do this, and this is what I'm worth, and I know that I've got a product, or I know I've got a service that people need, and I feel really good about that, and I know this. Great. You're telling the universe all the good things. You're believing in yourself. Your head might be saying, I'm actually really wondering whether or not people do want this, and maybe people don't, and what if they don't? And so it's questioning doubt. But that's because we as humans, we want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure. It's just like, my voice is going to say yes, 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 but in my head, what I'm not saying is, oh, I still have this fear that people aren't going to love me or like me or have what I want. So we get that out of the way, and then what we do is take our dominant hand and we place it over our heart, and we close our eyes and we connect our palm. We take our mind, our head to our palm, and we think about where it's touching our heart, and we just get used to that mind muscle connection. But we want to do heart connection. We just want to get to our heart connection. Now, just like our head is our ego, our heart is not our spirit, but it is a spokesperson for our spirit. So whatever it is that we're supposed to be learning right now, or as a theme in our life, like if we just keep having the same thing happen to us, whether it's our self-worth, whether it is love, or whatever it is, whether it's the theme that keeps coming, our spirit is trying to tell us through our heart, through our feelings, what we need to learn all along. And so if we get the voice out, if we get the head out, and we're just like, okay, we've given them their time, now I'm going to connect to my heart. So I'll give you an example. So my voice might be saying, get out of my house. I don't want you here. I hate you. It's done. We're over. My head might be saying, oh, you just don't understand how much you've hurt me. So your voice isn't saying what your head is saying, and your head isn't saying what your voice is saying. So straight away, we know we're out of alignment. You know, we are already not being authentic just with those two things. And so we know that our head, our thoughts, and our voice have so much power with frequency and attraction and all of that sort of stuff. So we've already set off a course of sequence of events that are going to come back and hit us from the universe somehow, some way anyway.
Yeah.
But when we get to the heart, if we connect to this, what our heart and our spirit is actually feeling is sad. But our voice is saying, get the F out. You need to leave. Our head is saying, you don't understand. And our heart just wants to feel sad. We're not saying, hey, I'm just sad. I'm sad about this. And our head's not saying, wow, like this just feels really sad, and we're sad. So the three parts to us, our head, our heart, and our voice, are not talking to each other. And we need to get to learn to have them all talking to each other and saying the same thing and responding to the feeling. Because the universe, no matter what you're saying, no matter what you're thinking, is always going to respond to what you're feeling. Yeah, it's your feeling. And so if you're telling yourself what you're feeling, you're going to get this distorted reality. Making sense?
It is and I'm loving this because I recently have started really just feeling pretty consistent peace and love and gratitude in my heart, which for most of my life was not the case, and my life reflected it. So I'm resonating with what you're saying, because everything in the physical world got way better for me when I started feeling there. Yeah.
So you have to move from a feeling rather than a thought. And I know in sales, like I have that, that drilled into me. In sales, it's just like, if you think it, you can do it. And you just got to link those two things up, and you've got to find a way to do it. Great. But the quickest way and the most authentic way, and the way to make it sustainable, so you're not getting sick and you're not burning out and you're not always feeling unsupported or just trusting, the quickest way to get there is to make sure that you're also satisfying the feeling. So if you're feeling alone in this, then say, do you know what? I'm feeling alone in this. And so then the universe can give you the antidote to feeling alone really quick.
So that doesn't attract more feelings of aloneness because you're verbal.
No.
Sorry, yeah. So explain that to
And
us,
so
please.
this is where people get stuck. So if you're speaking your truth, what the universe gives you back is truth.
Okay.
So if you're and this is why the book is amazing, because it teaches a method called the authenticity triad.
Awesome.
So in the book, it's literally an activity that you go through on pen and paper, and you can see it, and you go through the process. If you're feeling, the truth is that you're feeling alone. The only way that you're going to attract more aloneness is if you keep feeling alone. But the only way that you're going to feel more alone is if you don't honor that you feel alone and deal with it. So if you're feeling angry and you're not dealing with the honor of feeling angry and why you're feeling angry, then you're going to keep attracting things that are going to make you feel angry. But if you speak about, if your voice says, I'm angry, if your head says, I'm angry, and you want to work through it really, really quickly, it only brings it to you up until then, because you're transmuting and you're evolving the anger.
Yeah. You're
evolving the alone. And so you're not vibrating there anymore. You actually get to hope. The first thing that we get, because we surrender, this is all back to the principle of surrender, mercy, hope, faith, grace.
Got it.
And so there's these beautiful religious and spiritual words that start to come through, and this is where they come from. So the first moment of surrender is saying, like, I'm freaking angry at you. I'm just angry. I'm angry at myself. Or I'm alone right now, and I've put myself in this lonely position because at the core of it, I'm leaving myself alone in this loneliness. I'm not bringing the people, the things that I need to stop feeling alone. I'm rejecting myself. And so the world's appearing to reject me too. Stop rejecting yourself and the universe can't reject you anymore.
So good.
So truth vibrates higher than any emotion that's lower.
Got it.
Truth is truth. So as long as you're speaking your truth, that is the key to stop attracting more of what it is that you're afraid of attracting.
Oh my gosh.
Because you evolve it quickly.
Yeah, Tracy, this is amazing. I want to have you back because I'm realizing as we talk, like we could do a 2-3 hour deep dive into all of this. And I'm so intrigued by what you teach in your book. So thank you for sharing that. And I want you to tell everybody where they can find your book, and where they can find out more about working with you. But I feel like we just scratched the surface of what's possible. And especially,
I talk too much.
No, you talked the perfect amount. This was amazing. Like your story, I know I took so much from about listening to your body and paying attention and being supported by people outside of us, and surrender, right? Which I think is so much of the theme of even like right at the beginning of the conversation, kind of how our energy levels like came together there, and I had to surrender everything, and it was great. And just amazing things happen when we surrender. And I feel like an amazing conversation came out of this. So please, I would 100% go on if we had longer, and I wish we did. So I'd love to have you back, but please tell everybody where they can connect with you, where they can get your incredible book, where they can find out about working with you, and just like the types of people you're really good at helping. And then we'll go ahead and wrap.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So my website is tracydimech.com.au. And on there, you'll be able to find everything. So I do one-on-one clients, I do mentoring, I teach psychic development. My book you can buy via Balboa Press. I published it via Balboa, which is a division of Hay House. So you can buy it there. The links are all on my website, and I'm sure you're going to put it up in your show notes and everything as well. But there is all different levels of tiers of where you think you need, remembering that where you think you probably need is probably not where you need. And so it's better off if you were to reach out to me via an email, which is just info@tracydimech.com.au, and just reach out and I can tell you where you probably need to go. And we basically start from the scratch. But what you will be called to do is to surrender. And I will push you to do that, but it's to surrender to the feelings so that we can evolve those feelings and raise your vibration and start attracting what you're actually worth. And that will come in abundance in all areas of your life, in health, wealth, happiness, and everything.
Yes. Tracy, what you help people do is at the core of what's actually important in life. And it all comes, I know now from my own embodied experience, it all comes down to how you feel. And I'm so grateful to just have a deeper understanding today of how that works and how we can raise our vibration and attract and bring in everything we want. Because I know that's what all of my listeners care about too. So tremendous thank you to you for being here so early in the morning and for showing up and sharing so much value. I'm just so, so grateful for you. And I know everybody listening is as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you and for allowing me to share what I'm passionate about. And I'll get up at 3 a.m. to put my hair and my makeup on and get dressed and be in front of a really bright light to talk about what I'm passionate about. And that's service. And that's why I live the life I live now. And it's amazing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Well, everyone, connect with Tracy, follow her, get her book, and just start following these teachings, because this is, I talk about this stuff at kind of like a surface level. Tracy's the master. She's going to take you super deep into everything you want to know about how to vibrate at a higher frequency, how to deepen your spiritual connection. I'm so excited to have learned from you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for everyone listening, I love you so much. I truly hope and trust that you enjoyed today's conversation. I know you did. And we will see you next week with the next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.
Thanks, Elyse.